everyone, we are Team Dip. My name is Jimmy.
I'm Aichi.
I'm Aki. I'm Deepan.
And today we're here to talk to you about our idea, Dip. So I want to ask you guys, how many of you have ever taken a cab by yourself and had difficulty finding someone to share it with? I know that that's a problem, especially common among Northwestern students. Oftentimes during key times of year, such as Thanksgiving break, spring break, or winter break, students will want to go on vacation or want to go home, but they don't really have a good avenue to find people to split a cab with to get to the airport. So they turn to Facebook as an alternative. And the problem with Facebook is that, as you can see, it's very cluttered, it's time consuming, and that people will sometimes end up not ever being able to find a ride themselves. So I know someone who is close to me that has that same problem. Presenting Aichi.
So as a Northwestern student, I travel during the break, and I need transportation between the school and the airport. The easiest option is to take a cab, but at the same time, I would love to save money by finding people to share a ride with. So I would usually start it off by asking around. But the chance of having one of 6 of friends having the same time of departure, the chance is pretty low. So then I would go to the Facebook page, and as you can see, it's very clustered and it's so overwhelming. So usually I would scroll back 3 pages or 4 pages just to find a group of people who have the same time of departure. And that cost me a lot of time and energy. So is there a faster way where I can find a group of people to share a ride with and at the same time to save my money?
Thank you, Aichi. And the solution to your problem is actually Dip, an app available on the App Store. So by now, most of you are probably wondering as to how exactly Dip works and how it can help Aichi find a rideshare partner within the Northwestern community who she feels comfortable sharing a ride with, and furthermore, a way in which she can save time, save money, and save a little bit of sanity. So let's walk through Dip's interface and see exactly how it works. So right here is Dip, okay? So basically, Aichi logs in with a Northwestern verified email address. This is essential to ensure that she's within the Northwestern community. She then logs in, and then she then proceeds to find a match. Our app then generates a list of preset questions in order to determine her preferences. So for example, Aichi here wants to travel to Midway at 5 p.m. So, here are her preferences. Now here's something really cool about our app. We have an algorithm which basically takes into account Aichi's preferences and generates a list of matches. So Jimmy here is actually her first possible match. He's the most preferred match because he's also living the same time frame, 5 o'clock, and he's also heading to Midway. So now Aichi probably decides that she wants to find out more information about Jimmy. She proceeds to view his group and find out basic information about Jimmy. She sees his phone number and also finds out that he'll probably fall asleep in the car. Now, she then decides to chat with Jimmy. This is something really cool about our app. We have a built-in chat interface which allows users to communicate with their group and basically determine logistics without having to open up a third-party platform. So, they work out some logistics and decide to meet up at Plex at 3 o'clock. They join the group. Now here's the last really neat part about our app. Our app basically takes in the price of 3 different common services, Uber, Lyft, and a taxi service, and basically finds out the price according to the time frame you're leaving in, and it gives you the prices right here. Now as college students, we're typically looking for the cheapest option. So right here, as you can see, the taxi service will be the cheapest option, and then you can basically open up and call a taxi.
So as Aki was referring to alternatives, we have some competition, of course. We had Sidecar over there, typical airport shuttle, and then Zipcar. However, our competitors don't provide that sense of community and that sense of trust that Dip allows us to provide. So you're sharing a ride with someone within the Northwestern community, someone you likely trust more than the typical stranger off the street, where you'd share a ride with in an airport shuttle or in Sidecar. So Aichi would definitely trust Jimmy, this cute little boy over here, over a stranger off of the street, definitely. As well, I also want to address our revenue streams. So our revenue will be based, first of all, off of a market concept. So we want to prove our market exists within the Northwestern community, and then hope to expand and license the software to other universities across the nation, such as Rice, UCLA, or Stanford, and prove that our concept works and develop a substantial market that way. Then the next stage would be developing a commission-based service in which we would expand our partnerships with various services such as taxis, Ubers, and Lyfts to develop and generate revenue by referring customers to them, and then work on that as well as another main source of revenue for us in the long term. So to conclude, So to conclude, dip allows us to save time, save money, and save energy. So let's dip out together.
So this seems to me like a very seasonal business, like the times when you have enough students to be able to fit all of the requirements to meet, what it is you're looking for in a taxi partner, would be before Thanksgiving, before Christmas, and at the end of spring quarter. What do you do to sustain the business in between those times?
Well, we think those are definitely key times of the year where business will be higher, but also we see that throughout the school year, our Facebook page, the Northwestern Class page, does experience a lot of people who are looking to split a cab or taxi. And I think that especially among college students who have to travel to airports for schoolwork, that there definitely is a sustainable business throughout the school year.
So to start off, we want just to have our locations, like our departure locations, school and the airport, and then we'll see if it's successful, because like there usually students want to go to the concerts together, or like some other events down in shop together, so we can expand it to those markets as well.
How does Sidecar work?
So the sidecar, you would actually be just sharing a ride with some stranger and basically taking it to a common destination such as an airport, which is what our application involves. So you'd be sharing a ride with a stranger versus a Northwestern student because this market, our application requires a Northwestern login ID. So that provides a market and community of just Northwestern students versus Sidecar, which would be every user of that application.
Interesting. So, but if I'm at Northwestern and I'm trying to get to the airport from this area, have you tried the Sidecar feature? Like, have you all tried that before?
Okay, so what differentiates us most with other apps is that the other apps require you to drive a car and then share a ride. But what we do is like, we share like those.
Oh, so wait, the way Sidecar works isn't through a cab or anything. It's not a cab sharing.
It's basically carpooling.
Yeah.
Carpooling. Got it. Okay. So no one's done the pairing people to share rides thing aside from I looked at your competitors. Like your main competitors, obviously Facebook and people doing it themselves, right? Word of mouth. But then so I'm not as familiar with this landscape, but I'm willing to bet that there's someone else out there that's trying to do this. So who else is out there?
There are competitors out there. They're like small applications on various markets like Google Play or the App Store, but they don't target a specific niche market.
Right.
We're targeting university markets that consist of undergraduate and graduate students versus they're targeting the entire populace of the United States or whatever location they're involved in at the moment. So we're trying to attack a little small niche market versus a huge, vast market that there is.
Right,
Yeah.
and that's definitely something we also want to focus on because we do think that we cater to bringing students together. So it becomes also more of a social experience than if you had like a student and an Evanston resident. So that's one thing that we also provide that other applications wouldn't.
Did you guys come across AirHop at all? It's an NSH business at Northwestern that's doing
Sounds
it and
familiar.
struggling
Okay, yeah,
with this
so-
because of seasonality, because of some other disclosures.
So I've actually talked to people involved in AirHop. So AirHop is actually really struggling, and it's also not sustainable in that it costs a lot more than the typical taxi. Because I was talking to them about their pricing model, so that's why it hasn't been very sustainable. They didn't even run these past few quarters pretty much. I think they pretty much collapsed, and NSH decided to close down the business. I'm not specifically sure about the logistical issues behind it, but it's not an active running business on campus because I was trying to look into that resource when I was trying to leave and go to the airport personally.
But it sounds familiar. It's like that's the model, right? So I would want to understand why that didn't work out really, really well, right? Because you want to learn from whatever their mistakes were.
I feel the main difference between our model and AirHops is that we actually just let them take an Uber, a taxi, or let them put in what's cheaper. They actually provided the actual car service.
Ah.
So that's the main difference. Our algorithm basically takes into account, takes into pricing.
Got
and
it.
that's the main difference.
So you just matching people up and letting them communicate, figure it out themselves.
Yeah.
So
Because we feel as college students it's important for us to provide the cheapest alternative, whereas AirHop is kind of 3 years one.
right. So so it looks like that's like a kind of an app flow walkthrough, but like what's the simplest way to get this started? Because I imagine that you said the app's already on the app store, but it is. Or
It's
is
not on the App Store.
right, not yet. So I'm just trying to think, like, what's the between now and when it's on the app store? What can you do to start to like test this out?
So we basically really talked to different people. We basically found out how much time they have to spend on Facebook, basically finding people to rideshare like that. We actually found such a significant amount of time. So we really gauged the interest. People are interested in using an app like this. So we basically first try to figure out more of the interest, basically try to come up with an algorithm, basically find the preferences, put a few people together and basically through word of mouth or advertisements throughout the Northwestern campus. hopefully become successful throughout the season.
Is there a Facebook rideshare group?
There isn't a specific Facebook rideshare group. There's a Northwestern class page, which is cluttered like
With all types of stuff.
all types of stuff. Plays, rideshares. It's just insane.
It
It's
makes
so
life that much more difficult.
I'm surprised no one started a Facebook like Northwestern Student Rideshare Group or something. Like, I don't know, that sounds like a very simple next step.
The
There's
thing
still-
about the Facebook, the thing about the Facebook group is that you'll still see a lot of information, even though they're just like ride sharing. So like you have to look through every one of them. But
Yeah.
for our app, like it generates the matches for you, so you don't need.
Yep, I totally get that. All I'm saying is that you don't have the app yet, right? So well, where do you start? You know, so that's just a
That
quick
would be what you
suggestion.
guys
But
do.
I like this idea. I like what you guys are trying to do. I think it's absolutely worth testing and seeing through. So I hope you guys move forward with it. So. All right. Awesome. So,